The Lebanon-Israel border has become one of the most active and dangerous battlegrounds in the Middle East as clashes between the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah and the Israel Defense Forces have surged sharply in recent weeks. What began as localized skirmishes has rapidly expanded into sustained military confrontation with significant consequences for civilians, infrastructure, and regional tensions. This conflict is active, expanding, and far from over. Such a stark description reflects the evolving reality on the ground, where military engagement between Hezbollah and the Israeli forces shows no signs of abating. In March 2026, Hezbollah intensified its attacks across the Israel-Lebanon border, launching rockets and unmanned drones deep into northern Israel, including areas around Haifa Bay, and repeatedly targeting Israeli Defense Forces positions. These strikes have not been limited to night raids. Many have been conducted in broad daylight, signaling a deliberate escalation in operational tempo. Hezbollah fighters have reportedly engaged Israeli armored units with anti-tank guided missiles, challenging what Israel regards as its most advanced ground assets. The militant group has also attempted to disrupt aerial operations with multiple Surface-to air missiles fired at Israeli fighter jets, forcing aircraft to alter flight paths and, according to Hezbollah claims, undermining Israel's air superiority. This sharp escalation follows Hezbollah's broader involvement in the regional conflict after Iran's supreme leader was killed in late February 2026. According to conflict summaries, Hezbollah began firing missiles and drones into Israel for the first time since the start of the wider Iran-Israel war. Beyond tactical strikes, Hezbollah seems intent on sustained pressure, using rocket salvos and unmanned aircraft both as offensive weapons and as probes of Israel's defenses. Hezbollah is not just striking. It is testing, probing, forcing Israel to stay on constant alert. In many cases, the group's actions have extended well beyond military positions to include civilian targets in Israeli towns, compelling rapid response from Israeli air defenses. Israeli authorities have reported high volumes of incoming projectiles and the deployment of advanced anti-rocket systems to intercept them. While many barrages have been neutralized before causing mass casualties, the psychological and social impact on northern Israeli communities has been profound. Israel has responded to Hezbollah's intensification with considerable force. The IDF has launched airstrikes and artillery barrages into southern Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah launch sites, infrastructure, and command positions. In some sectors, Israel has conducted ground operations aimed at pushing Hezbollah fighters further from the border. Recent Israeli policy moves mark a significant shift. The military has sought to establish a security zone up to the Litani River in southern Lebanon, effectively expanding its operational footprint deep into Lebanese territory. This has involved the destruction of key infrastructure such as bridges and homes in an effort to sever Hezbollah's logistical links and deny it freedom of movement. The cost of hostilities has been severe. The Lebanese Ministry of Health and international agencies report thousands of civilians killed or wounded due to Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Hospitals and medical facilities have been overwhelmed, and many health workers now operate under extreme risk conditions. At least 2 paramedics were recently killed while responding to emergencies in conflict zones. Moreover, Israel on Monday warned that displaced Lebanese driven from their homes by its military campaign would not be able to return until the safety of Israelis living near the border was ensured. The resultant mass displacement affecting over 1 million people has raised deep international concern about the humanitarian crisis unfolding in southern Lebanon and Beirut's southern suburbs. International criticism has not been limited to civilian casualties alone. Human rights organizations and media observers have raised alarms about attacks on medical facilities and rescue workers, including so-called double-tap strikes, where rescuers are targeted seconds after the initial attack. In the midst of these battles, Hezbollah's leadership has been unequivocal about its intent. In a recent address, Hezbollah's senior leadership rejected any negotiation with Israel while hostilities continue, claiming that talks would amount to surrender. Negotiating with the Israeli enemy under fire amounts to imposing surrender and stripping Lebanon of its capabilities. The group insists that resistance, not negotiation, is the only legitimate course under current conditions. This stance aligns with Hezbollah's broader strategic narrative that resistance will continue without limits against what it characterizes as Israeli aggression and occupation. On both sides of the border, civilians bear the brunt of sustained combat. In northern Israel, towns like Kiryat Shmona have endured repeated barrages of rockets and drones, forcing residents into bomb shelters and putting daily life on hold. In contrast to past conflicts where mass evacuations were ordered, Israeli authorities have increasingly encouraged residents to remain put, stressing the role of air defenses in reducing casualties. In Lebanon, civilian areas, including Beirut's southern districts, where displaced families had sought refuge, have also been struck in recent operations, resulting in additional fatalities and injuries. The clashes between Hezbollah and Israel have occurred against the backdrop of a more expansive war involving the United States, Iran, and their respective regional partners. Iranian drone and missile strikes have hit targets in the Gulf states and drawn responses from U.S. forces, contributing to broader instability across the Middle East. Diplomatic efforts continue amid these hostilities, with some nations proposing ceasefire plans and others outlining counter-proposals. Iran, for example, has rejected a U.S. ceasefire framework and laid out its own conditions for halting hostilities and securing regional interests. The operational pattern appears consistent with what analysts call a multi-front pressure strategy, where Iran-backed groups like Hezbollah engage in coordinated actions aimed not just at military victory, but at straining Israel's military capacity, diverting attention, and shaping international political calculations. These groups serve a critical role. They stretch defenses, they divide attention, they drain military resources. Whether this is intended to force a negotiated settlement, weaken political resolve, or reshape regional alliances remains a subject of intense debate among strategists and policymakers. What was once a peripheral border dispute has escalated into a fully active and expanding theater of conflict between Hezbollah and Israel, with profound implications for Lebanon, northern Israel, and the wider Middle East. Civilians on both sides face mounting risks, while national leaders and armed forces remain locked in a cycle of military action and counteraction. Despite international diplomatic efforts, the confrontation shows little sign of de-escalating, with both sides reinforcing their resolve to continue the campaign. In the words that underscore this moment, this conflict is active, expanding, and far from over.